Hello, welcome everybody to Hegemony Revealed. I'm excited. My co-hosts, Sahana and Garry. Garry was not going to be with us today. He already pre-planned that. He's got to do some traveling. But Shahana is just running a little late with some traffic that she is in Mumbai. So she says she's going to jump on as soon as possible. But I didn't want to hold up our guest, FatalProse. And just a little bit about FatalProse. He is, she just sent me a message, says she's joining. Awesome. Okay, so FatalProse is a spoken word artist and digital content creator from Cleveland, Ohio. In 2022, he published his first book of poetry called Scratched, and that's spelled with caps and phonetically, and Success Course for Recovering Addicts of Trauma, Consequence, and Happenstance. Love that title. A 30-day journey of self-reflection. He is also an avid TikToker who uses his platform to speak out about oppressive systems, including racism and patriarchy. Okay, so he is the perfect guest for us here on Hegemony Revealed because patriarchy is definitely a part uh, of uh, hegemony. So, welcome, Fatal Pros. Do you use your own name? Do you want to share that, or do you want to just go with your incognito name?
Yeah, I just go with Fatal Pros online, and
Okay.
it's I've been going by it for 20 years, doing
Okay.
spoken word, in Ohio, and so yeah, I'm very comfortable with it. Most of my friends that know me call me Pros or call me Fatal.
All right. All right. So tell me, let me call you Pros. So, Pros, what started you on this journey um, speaking up against patriarchy?
No, absolutely. In my personal life, so I had started doing poetry in college, and I was a resident advisor, and we came across just a lot of different people, right? And so I started hosting open mics, and writing poetry myself, and speed, fast forward a few years, met my wife, and became a Christian, and and everything went downhill from there, because I really internalized what my interpretation of what Christianity meant, where uh, it was essentially telling you that as a man, your responsibility was to be a provider, a protector, and a priest, and you were the head, of the relationship. And oh, and by the way, everyone that is going to go to hell, if they don't accept Jesus Christ, right? And so I actually internalized that literally, and and so I actually, instead of prioritizing my marriage, really focused on what I considered saving souls. So I was the guy who I waited for Jehovah's Witnesses to knock on my door so I could sit on the porch with them all Saturday and debate with them about why they need to accept Jesus Christ my way, because
Okay.
there's so many different Jesus Christ running around. Um, and I just became a jerk. I became a really stuffy person, and I just kind of ran everything into the ground personally. And as I started to deconstruct what went wrong, after 10 plus years of that, it came down to this word called patriarchy, right? I started to really look at the Bible, and the way I internalized it, and started picking out, like, oh, wait a minute, the same people that said that the curse of Ham passed down to Canaan, and this is why racism was justified. The same people that said that Eve was the reason why the curse came in the first place, and why it justified men dominating women. Oh, and they're the same people that actually use the Bible to justify homophobia. And so from that, I started to pull apart. Okay, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it white
Mhm.
supremacy? Was it patriarchy? Was it homophobia? And I found out that it was patriarchy. You know what I mean? That it was men, starting to dominate in their personal relations, and expanding that to all the way to kings, right? So you have your king of the castle, which is where a lot of patriarchy comes from the home all the way to the king of a particular country, and it's all operated the same. It's might is right. It's people that say, okay, because I'm a man, because I'm physically stronger, then I have the right to dominate someone else, and it cascades from there.
There you go. Thank you. What a very concise and succinct explanation to this journey. First of all, Shahana has finally got online with us. Shahana, thank you for
Hi,
joining us.
thank you, and I'm so sorry. It was like a bit of a, it was a crazy rush.
No, no worries, no worries. And Shahana, this is Fatal or Prose. He goes by Fatal Prose, and
Hi.
he's breaking down why he became a proponent for anti kind of patriarchy structures. And man, what I find interesting, and I love that you started out with the religious aspect. One of my one of my things I will always say is that I think religion is a divisionary tactic of the hegemony,
Hmm.
because basically it divides and conquers. There was a time in history where people had their spiritual beliefs and they were consent, and everybody could like really connect on a certain level, no matter what the culture was. There was like a connection. But then patriarchy and hegemony came in and said, no, 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 mine is right, like you described. You couldn't wait till the Jehovah Witnesses came knocking on your door so that you could beat it down in their head that your way of belief was the right way of belief. And I think that was on purpose. What do you think, Shahana?
And it's very strange, but not so strange. I come from India. In India, is a largely quote unquote Hindu country, okay, and Hinduism is another different religion. And but if you look at how it operates today, and the core of the right wing Hindutva gangs go back to deep, deep, deep seated patriarchy
Mm,
about controlling women's bodies, controlling women emotions, desires, everything. What they wear, how they eat, what they eat, how they should walk, where they should be seen in public, not seen. And it is and obviously scripture, the Hindu scripture is quoted to justify that.
right.
So it's not, it's almost like there is this common thread running across religions. On one hand, it is dividing one religion from the other. My faith, like you said, is better than yours, and my God is better than yours, and all of that, all of that. And on the other hand, there is this common thread running across all of these, where the right wing proponents of control and hegemony are trying to use um, religion as a facade for controlling in different ways, for patriarchy, like you said, for homophobia, for state control, nation control, political control, professional control. And that roots back to a control by a handful of men, largely European and white,
Hmm.
proponents of hegemony, but they also have a network of other powerful men across the globe of other religions as well, who are still holding this hegemony together. And for the common people, all kinds of literally bullshit are cited to justify what they're doing, from religion to economy to nationalism to name any ism. It's only for the common men and the common people, people like you and me and you. But it is not for them. They are this common ringleader of, it's like this whole planet is their circus, and they are running the circus, pulling a few strings, sitting at the top. The
Yeah,
hegemony rules.
just real quick, I hear some feedback in the background. Is somebody's volume up really loud on their computer? Just yeah.
Is it mine? Wait. Something could
I
have
hear,
started off without my knowing. Just give me a
no, no,
moment.
no. I think it's fatal. I think it might be you. Yeah, it is yours. There's the background noise. Your mic, it might. Do you have any earplugs that you can use? No? Okay. Yeah.
because I came in such a rush. I don't know what went on and what didn't. So I just,
Yeah.
and
No,
all kinds of tabs just opened, and I don't even know what's on and what's not.
I'm just thinking of the podcast at the end when I post a podcast, we're gonna
Yeah,
have this extra sound in the background. But so okay.
Can you hear me
Yeah.
now?
Oh,
yeah,
perfect. No background noise either. Wonderful. So Fatal, kind of, anytime we're in conversation, just jump in. And
yeah,
do you have anything to add to what Shahana was saying?
No, I think it's really interesting because I've said it before, and I think it's definitely been said by other people. I feel like patriarchy is a religion in itself, right? And I think when I look back and I started to deconstruct my religious experience, I realized that what I was practicing wasn't necessarily Christianity or just Christianity. It was a patriarchal religion because it puts emphasis on all of the patriarchal verses in the Bible and it de-emphasizes some of the actual teachings of Jesus, right? So when you even at different Christian conferences, they'll tell you they lean into the poor will always be among us. They lean into that verse, but they don't necessarily lean into the part where we're supposed to give and love thy neighbor and all of those things. And thy neighbor becomes a very loose thing. You know what I mean? It always, baffled me how we could say that we're Christians where, Jesus actually turned the other cheek, but actually create a whole, war industrial complex
Wow.
and thrive. We're a Christian nation, but we thrive on imperialism, and we have
Yeah.
bases across the world.
Yeah.
And Christians that are actually encouraged to go into the service to become professional soldiers. So it's very interesting, and even down to the verse in Ephesians that talks about marriage, where you can hear all the time where it talks about how women should submit to their husbands, but it's rarely preached how men should submit to their wives, and as Jesus submitted to the church and give their life for it, right? So people don't necessarily preach from that verse where it's like, oh, you mean in order for my wife to submit to me, I submit to her first, and I give my entire life to her. So it becomes very one sided, and very much, kind of cherry picking from the Bible to the extent it gets so bad where you don't even have to read from it. All you have to do is like hold it up in front of a church, and people will, kind of give you authenticity. When they ask, what's your favorite, book in the Bible is, your verse in the Bible, you don't even have to give it. You just, oh, I'm very religious, very very much scriptural, but and
Yeah.
so it's really bad. It's almost a parody of itself, but it's a way that people are stirred up as trying to say, people, commoners are kind of drawn to this because they go every Sunday and they go every Wednesday, and they're so much focused on only that to the point where they'll abandon their common faculties, their common sense, their common reason, their critical thinking, and just say, oh, because this person is a pastor, and even to that, to the point where you can, as long as you call yourself reverend, you don't even have to have a church. Just become a reverend, and it gives authenticity to the name, even though that's not necessarily what you practice. So, I
yeah,
think when we made the church a building instead of understanding that the church is the people, that was the first step, because now it's this inorganic thing, that can be manipulated into financial gain and all of those things, instead of actually being about the needs of the people. As a child growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, I always wondered, like, there's a church on every corner, what I mean, but there's no God, there's no one, the church is right next to the crack house, what I mean, and nobody is actually going out into the community and transforming. You would think if there were thousands upon thousands of churches, all these spiritual people, that there would be a transformation, and people would treat each other better. But that the reason why, as an adult, I got the answer is because they're practicing patriarchy. They're not necessarily practicing Christianity. They're practicing a form of religion which is used to control people, not necessarily liberate them, and that's why.
Wow. That's
yeah,
so profound. That is so true. And
yeah,
and on top of that, that I lived in Europe for a while too. And can I tell you, on a spiritual level, walking into those buildings, I would always get a sick feeling. And the reason why is that so much torture and so much blood was done in those basements in that building that there is actually really no connection to spirit. It's dark. And they're dark, they're dank, they're cold. And so I always wondered, how could anybody be uplifted in this environment? You know what I mean? It's just so oppressive. The feeling is oppressive, and so much of the hegemony has gone out into the rest of the world. When I look at what's happening right now in Palestine, in
Yeah.
Israel, in
Yeah.
Israel, using Judaism as
Yeah.
their tool against the Palestinians, and it's not Judaism. And Jews, Sephardic Jews, are coming up, and Ashkenazi Nazi Jews are saying, "I'm not a Zionist. Stop
Yeah.
using stop using Jew to describe your faith, because your faith is
Right.
evil." You know, and you see how manipulative the Zionists have said, "Oh, you're anti-Semitic if you say what we're doing is wrong," but Arabs are Semitic people too.
Yeah.
So how do you explain that away?
You can't, because what typically stems from patriarchy
Mhm.
are all these, patriarchy gave rise. So if you look at it, patriarchy gave rise to colonialism,
Mhm.
imperialism, that whole imperial force led by a handful of men. Then you have capitalism. Then you have the whole supremacy thing, which led to racism and and even more discrimination against the other people who look different from us, different from the whites. And so, what has happened is patriarchy has become so embedded in every institution, religion, everywhere, religion, politics, education, everywhere. It has become so embedded that even the policies, because they're again created by a handful of men, extremely and power grabbing, power hungry patriarchal men. So, all of that has begun to reflect the values stemming from patriarchy, which is command, control, competition, authoritarianism, totalitarianism, a kind of effacing and reducing of emotions and connection, uh, and sort of glorification of things like savagery and war. You don't see women, or rather, I mean, there are women who can be savage, that's different. But you wouldn't see this mass of women going to war to
No,
kill people of another country just to take their land, or just to expropriate or their land and their people, or to exploit the resources. All those decisions are stemming from a kind of controlling mindset which entitles them to feel that we can do what we want with impunity. And
yeah,
that's
it's
the root of patriarchy, that
it's
I can do
narcissism.
what I want.
It's
That's,
straight up
yep,
narcissism.
yep,
That's what it
yep.
is. You know, how
I'm
do
a
you think?
man, so I can do. Might is right, like FatalProse said.
Right. So fatal. How do you think the narcissism plays into patriarchy?
If there was a Venn diagram, and I think someone did make one, it would be synonymous. There would be no overlap. There would just be one circle. Because you're essentially looking at someone who is really insecure,
Yeah,
right? And I think and acting out of that insecurity, or if we say a scarcity mindset. There's not going to be enough. There's not enough resources, and therefore I have to manipulate and control everything around me in order to make sure that I am seen as enough, or that I am seen as grandiose. So you get into a lot of propaganda that's not necessarily grounded in any fact. You take "Make America Great Again," right,
yeah,
as one of
yeah.
those kind of almost fascist,
Not all,
taglines.
almost
Yeah,
no. It's fascist.
I
it
know.
is fascist. Yeah,
I'm using loose terms for the for those in the back. Um, but and then you interrogate it and you say, oh, when was America great? When was America great? When was it actually great? And you can't get to a time frame where there wasn't just widespread um, you know um, terrorism of other marginalized groups of people, right? And I think we glorify or America. I only speak for America because I'm an American. We like to think of ourselves as the center of the world even in a book that doesn't include us, right? And so the way that we connect, ourselves to the prophecies of the Bible is through Israel, right? And so as a Christian, I can see now it was just years upon years of propaganda about how Israel was going to play this grand role in the return of Jesus Christ. And every country was going to hate Israel, and this conflict that we're seeing now, I'm sure in churches is being pointed to as another milestone of what's how Jesus Christ is going to come back. And so now every church that has these people kind of lock and key or lock under that control, saying, look, it's happening. The prophecy is happening, right? When in reality, what's happening is ethnic cleansing, right? And
Yeah.
it is something that's been orchestrated for 75 years. And
Yeah.
now, that the time is right. It's okay. Let's just move in. Let's build a freeway through what used to be Gaza, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I keep hearing as far as the justification, oh well, they're not a country. They're not actually, a country. They're just people that are there. That not, but they're not a people. And it's the grossest form of dehumanization. What I mean, to say, oh, because you're not a actual someone that we recognize as a country, that means you don't have rights, and we can just tell you to move and displace you. And it reminds me of like places like Lake Lanier, where it was just like, oh, we want to build a we don't want this town to be here. Let's build a lake. Let's just build. And so the genocide and mass unaliving of people becomes a matter of just convenience. But if you treated those people with dignity in the first place, and if you gave them a space to have resources and to grow and to flourish, then you wouldn't have the atmosphere that would create the so-called terror cells that you utilize to cause that genocide. You know what I mean? So it's how much of that do we contribute to, when we don't actually treat people humanely. It would be as if, when you look at the riots that happened, after the murder of George Floyd, saying, "Oh, look at all these crazy black people that are burning down cities. Why are they doing it this way?" When year after year after year, we've been,
Yeah.
kind of plagued with these unjust murders. So, just anyone that's listening, I challenge you to look at the full scope. Not just to look at October 7th as this
Yeah.
isolated event, but look at all the things that have happened before it. And I definitely don't want anyone to be unallowed to lose their lives, but this is not a equal playing field. This is the fourth largest military force in the world, unaliving lots of civilians, a lot of children, in the names of trying to get terrorists, and I think it's terrible. But to tie it to patriarchy, I think about the land and the way we treat land, all just
Yeah.
society in general, right? If you think of Mother Earth as actual Mother Earth, and you say, okay, this is whenever you try to stake a claim on land, you're staking claim to a woman's body, and you're saying
Yeah.
this belongs to me, because I'm stronger, right? Because I'm the stronger nation, I can take that. When you look at the globe and the amount of people on it, there's land enough for everybody to live in peace and to have enough food and to have enough water. But because someone feels that they have a claim to a woman's body, to Mother Earth, there's all of these wars fought over it, right? Just much like the way we say that women don't have a bodily autonomy because we want to have a means to the source of production, because we want to charge for it. We want people to fight in our wars, so we want to make sure that the population stays at a certain level. And I think that that comes to the root of it. I mean, we need to change the way we think about land. We need to change the way we think about each other, in our humanity, and the way that we structure governments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So much disconnect in order to make that happen, though. You know,
and
so much.
what you said about land, this taking of claims. If you go to any of the indigenous tribes, they don't claim the land; they live with it. They don't think the land belongs to them. There is no expropriation and appropriation of land. But if you look at the patriarchal capitalist society, the first thing they do is own land, take land, expropriate. Then you extract, then you excavate, then you blow up mountaintops, then you do deep sea trawling, do whatever, like you would ravage and pillage and rape a woman's body. It's the same thing, and
Mhm.
that's precisely what is happening. And what you said, Gaza is like this, Palestine is like a microcosm of everything that goes into empire building: genocide, ecocide. I mean, the tons of bombs being thrown on the land is destroying the land and every fertile ability the land ever had. Ethnic cleansing, genocide is happening, ecocide is happening, bombing of universities and libraries is ensuring that the historical knowledge is lost, so that is epistemicide happening. So you have this classic combination of genocide, ecocide, and epistemicide, and that's how empires are built, and that's how histories of people are wiped out, and that's how a completely foreign power takes over and, in the name of laying stake to a land which apparently has no people, for people without any land or whatever.
Yeah.
The same
Yeah.
way that America was built, the same way that any settler colonials are built, whether it's New Zealand or Australia or Canada. It's just people who went and expropriated other people's land in the name of no one lives there.
Well,
Mm.
the thing is that they say if you didn't claim it, then we will, and that's
Yep,
their mentality.
yep,
And the reason you said it perfectly. The who people who are indigenous people never claim land because
yep,
land can't be claimed. We are one with the land. So we the land is that feeds us. We honor it. We take care of it.
yep,
It nourishes us, so we nourish it. So so many people are losing their lives due to ecocide.
yep,
The way I just posted something about P PFAS, which is a chemical that is on the outside, on Teflon, on the stuff that you put in your shoes. It's highly toxic. It's a sealant,
yep,
and they knew it was deadly, and they knew it could get in water streams, and almost every human being on the planet has some type of level of it in them, and it causes cancer.
yeah,
There's not even there's nothing to refute. It causes cancer. And so I find it I find these oligarchy, they're they're complicit, and they also are murderous. We are expendable
yep,
in hegemony's mind, and in patriarchy even, because look at I can tell you from my own experience how being married and uh, married to a narcissist, and being basically um, oppressed and mentally and psychologically manipulated, and then just thrown away because I said, oh, no, 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 I'm connected to myself, you can't treat me in this way. But 3 months later, on to the next one. It's just we're so expendable
yeah,
as women, as humans, for a certain type of mentality that is deeply rooted in psychopathy. You know, you literally have to be insane to think that this is okay to treat people like this. And yet here we are, and we've been contributing it to it so long that we just we normalized it, because I think that was the only way to get through the pain of it. But I think more people are having their grand awakening, as I call it. And now what do we do?
and and it's also that, like you said, oligarchy, the people in power, a handful of them.
Hmm.
They are not many, but they control the media, they control the propaganda machines, they control misinformation, disinformation. And this has not suddenly started. It started like at least 500 years ago, if not more.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
that handful realized that to stay in power, we have to weave a narrative that is actually a facade that will
Mhm.
lull people into believing whatever we say and that it is for their good. So we had imperialism in the name of progress and development, in the name of civilizing the barbarians and the savages, that is, people like us with brown color skins and other color skins. So,
Mhm.
and all of these tropes had to be created so that the people in their land would buy into the story of missionaries going out into the world to for the good of the world and to save the world and to save the heathens and save the savages and whatever else was created. Now,
Again,
all of
religion.
that has to come, yeah, and all of that has to come from a very narcissistic mindset of my way is the only way.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
you have this whole concept of, the universal, that, universal truth. Okay, there are some scientific truths like the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, which is, yes, universal truth. But other concepts that the white male scientists would have us believe are, or what theoreticians would have us believe as universal truths, are basically one way of seeing the world, their way.
Mhm.
And
Now, oh, go
you
ahead.
don't
Sorry.
agree, when you don't agree, then, well, there is always violence.
Always violence, because violence is their that's their mechanism. It's the only way they ever even
Yep,
was able to populate the rest of the world. So,
yep,
Fatal, I want to ask you something. As we're talking about this thought came in my head. TikTok, TikTok. Shahana mentioned how they
it's
control the
blocked.
media.
It's
How they
blocked in
control.
India.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
India is blocked. Wow, I didn't know that. So, I got to teach you about VPN. Anyways, so you, Fatal Pros, I found you on TikTok, started following your content. We started interacting quite a bit. How do you think TikTok has changed the landscape of information dissemination?
Absolutely. I think it has connected people in a way that I think the internet um, maybe tried to before, but just hasn't. It spreads information so fast, right? So when something happens, you can a lot of times get the news on TikTok before it actually is on the actual news because it spreads so fast. To use kind of a rudimentary example, the list of 28 places that you should never take a woman on a date. I found that on TikTok, and the news found out about it off of social media, and then they kind of copy off of. So now there's entire news segments about newscasters watching TikTok to find out what people are doing. And when you talk about, and this is just by observation, the women's movement, right? When a lot of women got together around the globe and found out that they were having the same experience, right? They, what was normally siloed as an individual experience is now like, wait a minute, things like, like you said, narcissism, things like, the way that patriarchy works. These are conversations that may have before been in academia, but not necessarily on ground level. Well, now it's a part of the human lexicon. Everybody's having that same conversation. So I think TikTok, is vital both in sharing information, sharing testimonials, but also connecting people with resources. There's numerous history channels that actually, in a time where books are being banned, right? You look at state of Florida, and all these books are being banned. We don't want to talk about critical race theory. TikTok kicks in, and now people are doing broadcasts on everything critical race theory. That's actually how I started to establish my platform is when they started the propaganda reel about critical race theory and being in schools and all this other stuff. I started to broadcast, okay, this is what actual critical race theory is. And so it's a way to also counter propaganda as well. TikTok is broadly pro Palestine, in that struggle. And you see people sharing videos, as they get them from the ground as far as what's actually happening. So you're able to circumvent a lot of kind of the news blackouts, which is I think a reason why, TikTok has, there's been numerous attempts to ban TikTok in the U.S. and it continues, to this day, because it's not healthy for the state,
Right.
to have that type of communicative freedom. But that is what freedom of speech is. Now, I will say, TikTok also is a business, and it is also very much can be slighted towards very harmful things as well, as far as how community guidelines are enforced, as far as how some content is promoted over other content. So not to put this kind of idealistic gloss on TikTok, because there's those oppressive systems show up on TikTok as well, but it has been effective in many cases to spread information.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a, that's why we had native TikTok, we had Black TikTok, because there was a concerted effort by the powers there to basically silence certain creators and give certain creators the likes and the views that they should be garnering. And I was having a conversation with somebody regarding this Israel, Palestine. And I said, one of the things that's important we must not do is fall into the mainstream media habit of choosing a side,
Mm.
because one of the things that's happening, and a lot of the things that people don't understand, is that this is how they get us polarized.
Yeah.
I'm most definitely pro Palestine in the sense that nobody should be oppressed. I don't think anybody should be silenced. And the way this is absolutely textbook war crimes and genocide. And so I hold the United States accountable, and I hold all the people who have basically enabled this to happen for so many years. But this was done on purpose. There is a very lucrative oil and gas line going straight through Gaza, and so far Egypt is the only country that's been benefiting from this source. And so Israel and the United States are struggling right now globally, mm, to get the oil resources and the pipelines up, because countries are like, no. Nigeria is like, no. Where else? Russia is like, no. They like
Hmm.
starting a literal war. There's proof that the U.S. even bombed the Russian pipeline to Europe, which impact the people of Europe. And I don't even think the war. Putin doesn't have a war with Europe. This is a proxy war. And
Yeah.
so we were talking about how we're already in World War III, and it's been going on for a while, because China's the bad guy, Russia's the bad guy, and the US cannot take zero accountability. The UK can't take zero accountability for their behavior in the past. China can't take accountability for their behavior in the past.
Did she freeze or did I freeze?
Yes. No. I think it's a network or network.
Okay,
But
no, I
yeah.
understand. No,
Yeah.
I agree with what she was saying, though. As
Yeah.
far as it being a proxy war, the oil and gas, those points for resources, and being pro Palestinian people does not mean you're pro Hamas, and
Yeah.
being pro
Absolutely.
Jewish people doesn't mean you're pro the nation of Israel, right? And when you look at those two things, Hamas and the nation of Israel, you may see a lot of similarities, right?
Yeah.
And I hope that people can look at the United States the same way, or like, wait a minute, the people of the United States of America doesn't necessarily mean that, the United States, the corporation, has
Yeah.
the best interest of its own people at heart either.
Yep.
Um,
Absolutely.
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 I think, because I think a question was asked as far as like what do we do? What I mean, as far as like, I think focusing on building autonomous communities, and first of all, realizing that the narcissism that exists in interpersonal relationships is that same gaslighting that exists on
Yeah.
a global scale, and working to deconstruct those things, like deconstruct the patriarchy inside you,
Yeah,
decolonize,
yeah,
really focus on filtering that stuff out of you, and then filtering that stuff out of the people that are around you, and looking and trying to imagine a new way to live without it.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I think
yeah.
that's part of
And
it.
I think what Trina was saying about not being polarized is very important, because I totally believe you can be pro Palestinian people and you can be pro Jewish people, because they are common people struggling to live a life of dignity, honor, resilience, love, community. That does
Hey.
not mean that pro being pro Jewish people does not mean we condone the terrorist horrors and genocide of Israel as a state, which is backed
Right.
by the largest military forces in the world and has the most sophisticated of weapons of literally mass destruction, and which they're raining down on a land of people with what they would call weapons is like firecrackers in comparison.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that does not mean being pro Palestine, does not mean being pro Hamas, which is a terrorist which is a terrorist outfit, which is a terrorist group. But there we also have to trace back the 75 years of history to 1948, to 1967, to the Nakba, to the displacement of peoples from their own land for the collective guilt of Europeans. Because
Yeah.
what happened to the Jews was done by Europeans. Why not give a piece of Europe to the Jews? Why not give a piece of Germany to the Jews? Why would you
Right.
come across the Atlantic, grab someone else's land, like taking some other kid's toy to pacify your own kid? Here, boy, take it. Why would you do that? Yes, if this was a holy land for you, would you desecrate the land, or would you actually, you know, would you hold this land in honor and respect, and maybe come on a visit to see the people who live there now, with
Yes.
with with the with the humility of building that relationship of this land is our land and your land. Can it be our collective land to honor, to respect, to love, to hold sacred? You wouldn't desecrate it with phosphorus bombs. You would not commit ecocide on the land you call whatever your homeland. And what kind of a homeland will you build on the mass graves of babies? I don't get it.
Can you guys hear me? Because
Yes.
Yes.
the hegemony got pissed about what I was saying and decided to
Right.
my internet off for a couple of minutes. I was like, "What's going on?" But they're listening. Hi. So, anyways, I missed part of what you're saying, but absolutely, um, I think I think what we have to realize, it always comes down to dollars and cents, and and I just got some information that totally made sense to me. One of the DRC is being genocide, like most of Africa,
Yeah.
for hundreds of years, but the Congo in particularly for the coltan. But also, one of the biggest diamond traders in the world is a billionaire in Israel.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
you know what I mean? These are paid terrorist militias. And I will say shame on African men for taking these bribes to kill
Yeah.
and rape your own people for European and Western interests, when you are so full of wealth and abundance, and you could be helping your own people, and you choose murder. It's just heart wrenching what's happened. But it also will say, on a psychological level, it's due to, hundreds of years of
Yeah.
brutality and suffering, that people can lose their humanity, lose their connection to self. So, uh, Fatal, if you had anything that you could say to the young men out there, talking a lot of stuff that I've seen in the TikTok streets about women and about our roles and stuff like that. What would you say to them?
Sure. Much like it's important to kind of have your wits about you if you're ever pulled over by the police, right?
Mm,
And that is a talk that we need to have with young men, and you need to have the wrap it up conversation to protect yourself from any type of disease or whatnot. We need to have that same conversation about male entitlement. That would be my topic. That um, a woman's emphatic no is just as valuable as a woman's emphatic yes, and you want an emphatic yes. You don't want to coerce someone to be with you. You know what I mean?
mm,
Coercion is a form of rape, right? And so, but we're socialized to believe that coercion is what makes you a man. Your ability to be persuasive and to convince someone to come home with you, right? Is the whole game, right? So the whole game is based on rape culture. The whole game is based off of men exploiting women, and but ultimately, that will not lead to your happiness, right?
mm,
It's not gonna holding someone hostage, and it's not necessarily holding someone hostage all the time, but trying to connive your way, into someone's life through lies and manipulation, it harms you as well, right?
mm,
And you'll wind up 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 bitter
Yeah.
because you never learn how to cultivate genuine relationships, and no one really likes you, because you never created an authentic personality within yourself. You only leaned into how much money you have and how much you could use your personal charisma against other people. So learning how to accept rejection. If someone rejects you, if a woman doesn't necessarily isn't favorable to your overtures, that's a good thing. It means that that person is not the person for you, and you can move on to someone who will be, right? Who actually does want to spend time with you and actually does value your conversation. And in order to do that, we have to first value ourselves, right? We have to see ourselves as human beings, and not just mechanisms for making money. Because what I always hear, especially from younger men, but from older men as well, is they have this binary where a woman is valuable because of her body, and a man is valuable because of his wallet, right? And
Yeah.
so that's why they're asked questions like, "What's your body count?" You know what I mean? And I want you to be fit, feminine, friendly, because that's where we derive value from. Your body, your ability to produce babies and carry on my legacy. That's how I see a value in a woman, not necessarily in her humanity, who she is, her aspirations, her dreams, those type of things. And then I start to see my value as just my ability to provide and my ability to protect. However, when you interrogate that, right, it's not actually protection that can be valuable, because you're only talking about protecting what you see as property to you. So you're not protecting her, the human being. You're protecting her, your entitlement to her, right?
mm,
And so when you get into a situation like, we all were kind of witness on TikTok to what happened to Roe, a woman in Houston, Texas, who, told a man no, when he made overtures, and he wound up hitting her in the face with a brick, right? And all the, her, the video of the aftermath of her, asking these black men, why didn't you do anything? Why are you just standing there? And when that's looked at, it's, and you start to have all these different discussions that comes in. Well, I don't want to put my life on the line. I don't want to have to, it's not my responsibility. So you're not a protector then, if that's how you feel, right? You're only a protector under certain circumstances. Um, and and then that's not being a protector at all, because it's not actually creating any safety, because the woman that you're so-called protecting is going to go out into the world where you're not, and still have to engage with men who don't believe in being a protector to anyone but someone who belongs to them, right? So there's no protection in cause, claiming a woman as your property, right? That's not protection at all. You cannot protect somebody and dehumanize them at the same time. And so that's the conversation we have to have with our young men. That as men, you're a woman. You're not entitled to a woman. You're not entitled to a woman's body. You're not entitled to a woman's time. You're not entitled to a woman's affection.
And so it's okay, and it's not, and you don't want to be, right. You don't want to be needed, in that way. You want to be wanted, and being and wanting to be desirable to a woman is a whole different set of skills, and circumstances that you create to create that type of atmosphere if you want to cultivate that type of love. But you can't cultivate love and domination at the same time.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm, exactly. And I get everything that you just said, I could say about hegemony too.
Yeah.
Everything. Everything. Because had the colonizing imperial um, forces gone into other countries with integrity,
Yeah.
um, curiosity, compassion, and asked to collaborate instead of feeling entitled to take, we'd live in a very different world.
Yeah.
We'd live in
Absolutely.
a very different world.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about Congo, and what's interesting, what's not interesting, what's terrible is that the first thing that happens when that destabilization happens is the soldiers, when they go into a new village, is they begin to rape, just mass rape, on that level. And it goes back to patriarchy, even though, so you're being used as a pawn to destroy your own country. But as long as you can dominate in that little locale, and you can get your, you know psychological rocks off, then that's enough for you, right? So the proxy war has been going on with in Africa since colonization. As soon as we kind of lifted up the official colonization, they moved in with proxy governments and proxy armies that still protect their interests in the region. And in order for Africa to be free, we have to let go of patriarchy, because patriarchy is part of the mechanism that's used to control us. And it's the same thing that we see happening in America, where black men are, Steve Bannon came out and publicly said, "Oh yeah, black men, they're going to be a part of our political, strategy. We're going to flip, a lot of black men in America. They're going to vote Republican, and the reason why they're going to vote Republican is because they're going to support patriarchy over their own race. They're going, because they're going to want to have that control. And so we become jealous of the success that black women have in America, and we allow that jealousy to create a wedge between us, right? Because we don't necessarily want to. We want that 1950s "Make America Great Again" scheme too in our home, though. We don't want the racism, but we want to make America great again in our home, right? And that's the problem.
Yeah. Want the macro and the micro. They want that version around them, but they don't want to walk out into the world and deal with it. And that's when it comes down to black men, all men really need to get their heads straight and in deep understanding of self, and not only their masculine but also their feminine. You know, it's it's to me that even that divide is the first divide and conquer, because no matter what, we're supposed to complement each other. We're not supposed to be fighting against each other. And the hegemony has worked tirelessly to divide men and women as well, because and there's really no reason. We're humans, and we have our strengths and we have our weaknesses. And if you're a good communicator, and if you love yourself, you're going to be able to communicate your needs in a way that doesn't oppress another person.
Yeah.
That's it. Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. So we got just a few more minutes left here before we have to jump off. Any closing thoughts or words about this conversation? It's been such a great conversation. Thank you, Fatal Pros.
Thank you.
Can I read you all something?
Sure, I would
Yeah.
love. Yeah.
I appreciate it. This is um, this is Portrait of a Man, and I think, one of the things that, just is, if you wanted to start somewhere, right, as a man, and start to deconstruct patriarchy, I think you would start here, right? First, you must decide to draw a man, not a male or a boy. Those are just sketches, but a man, filled in and flushed out, full of maturity and depth and a substance that can only come with dedication to the lines that define him. Then you must answer the question, what makes a man a man? How do you distinguish a man from the clamor that surrounds him? His job, his hobbies, his home life, his politics, his religion, his sexuality. How do you capture the man himself and who he is without these sacred objects somewhere blending in from the background? Is that even possible? Is not a man simply what he does, where he stands, and who he will die for? Is not a man why he lives, when he loves, and when he fights, and how he chooses to spend his time? And is manhood the means or the end of a man? How do you even picture what manhood should be like if you have never seen a man portrayed outside the canvas of a male dominated society? Is the measure of a man the length of his reach? How many shiny things he can gather and hold hostage in his arms? Is the worth of a man in the strength of his jaw? How many times he can take a punch, push through the pain, and remain conscious enough to level a blow against his opponent? Is the beauty of a man found in how he wears the weight on his shoulders, like it's a style, like it's culture from Fate's fall collection that he is modeling for the children watching him? Is it how he rests in the shade of his skin, lets the world's prejudice turn to dry precipitation in the gray skies he will never allow to eclipse his dreams? Is it the sun that rises in his chest each morning? Is it the light that shines in his eyes even while he sleeps? Is it the way he shapes the air as he breathes into this invisible life? Is it the discretion in his lips hiding the secrets left stranded on the island of his tongue? Is it the pride in his stomach or the integrity of his spine that prevents his posture from submitting to time? What makes a man a man? Is it his method? Is it his mannerisms? Is it his discipline? Is it his consistency? The question must be answered. The decision must be made. And lastly, an awareness must be apprehended. The man you must decide, the man you must decide to draw is yourself. To draw yourself, you must know yourself. To know yourself, you must ask yourself the question like, what type of man will you decide to make of yourself? And will you continue to refine the likeness of his image? For the pencil is still in your hand. Even now, the pencil is still in your hand. We have to make the decision of who we will be, what we're willing to live for, and what we're willing to die for.
Wow.
I need to do that spoken word snap on that. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you for
Good
sharing
thanks.
that.
Wow, what a lovely way to end our conversation. What a
Oh my goodness, my goodness.
and it applies to us being humans. How do you choose to be a human?
Mm,
How
yeah.
do we choose to express ourselves in our full and whole humanity? And how do we choose to be in relationship with each other, with first and foremost our own selves, with
Mhm.
the land, with the planet, with each other, and with the more than human world and life around us. And if you can't hold those in balance, that's when I think what happens in Gaza is just a microcosm of what is happening across the world in various ways.
You said it. Thank you guys. This was a very special Hegemony Revealed. Um, and even though there were some technical issues and things like that, it always ends the way it's supposed to end and always begins the way it's supposed to begin. And I would call out to everyone that is suffering from this time. Please go in, stay calm, stay compassionate, stay thinking critically, and just hold yourself, hold your family, but don't slip into fear. Please don't slip into fear because that's how they get control of us. And thank you again, Fatal Pros, for coming on Hegemony Revealed.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
And
you.
everybody who's watching this on the live now, thank you for joining us today. Please share this experience, and I'll have this podcast up pretty soon here. And everyone have a blessed day.
Bye
You too.
bye.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's nice meeting you.
Bye.
Bye.